Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's BIM for Analysis 2017 update webinar. It's good to see so many of you here today from around the world, so we thank you for your time. My name is Niall Gibson. I'm a Business Development Manager for IES, working across Europe, and we're delighted to have you with us this morning. So I'd like to introduce my co-presenters today. Douglas Bell, who's the one in the middle of your screen at the moment. Douglas is a member of the consultancy team here at IES. Douglas is responsible for building numerous models within the IES virtual environment across a wide variety of challenging projects worldwide, as well as using various other CAD packages such as Revit, Rhino, SketchUp. It's also his responsibility to project manage and quality check models built within the virtual environment, in addition to project work, using his knowledge as a BIM AP. Douglas has implemented BIM standards into IES consultancy and continues to develop this as an ongoing process. He is also part of a BIM development team pushing the software forward. So that's Douglas Bell. On the right-hand side of your screen, the picture there, that's Jean Curie. Jean is a business development manager with IES, operating across the east coast of both Canada and the US. He's focused on helping engineers and architects implement technology workflows that promote sustainable building design and ultimately reduces the carbon impact of the built environment. Jean has pioneered the BIM integrated energy modelling workflow taught in college programs, industry workshops, and to students all over the world with his online training course. He's also a member of the technical advisory boards for Building Smart Canada and the Green Building XML schema. So that's us. So today we'll be looking at the following. So after this short introduction, I'll be presenting Digitalisation of Construction in 2017 and the role of IES and the virtual environment within it. Followed by Douglas Bell, who will demonstrate the new virtual environment Interoperability Navigator and its benefits. This will be a detailed look at the new tool to be released within the VE 2017 later this month. It's been developed in line with client requests for standard flow to achieving the best possible import of their models into the virtual environment. This is a commitment by IES to our clients that we've developed a stage 1 tool which will be further enhanced. So really all feedback is very welcome. It's after all your tool. Followed by Douglas will be Jean Curie, looking at the integration of IES with Revit at an advanced level with bi-directional workflow. It will be an overview, but training is available to teach you in detail, step by step, and details of that will be provided as well. At the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A before we round up. So we'll be taking notes of all your questions throughout the session. If you look in the toolbar to go to webinar on the right-hand side of your screens, there's a pane there for questions. Please feel free to ask any questions, just type them down into the pane. These will be picked up by us and we'll discuss them at the very end of the session in full. Following that as well, we'll publish questions on a FAQ which will be available when we follow up with you. So please feel free, this is a session for you to ask any questions that you'd like, so don't be shy. Okay, so I'm going to start with the digitization of construction in 2017 and the role of IES in the virtual environment within that. So let's just step back a little bit from our day-to-day and build information modeling and the like, and let's just look at what's happening in the world around us. So the world around us is changing, and the way that we want to live is changing. Rapid population growth and urbanization is fueling a global construction boom. It's a critical issue in emerging markets which are demanding cleaner, more sustainable and healthier urban environments with reliable sources of energy and less congestion. So if we look at some of the numbers here on the screen, the population growth over the next 30 years is going to increase by about a third. That's 2.4 billion people added to the planet. This growing population, for example, requires not just housing, as you'd imagine, but also places to work, infrastructure, hospitals, transport, schools, and everything else in between all of that. And we know, looking at the breakdown of total carbon emissions within a country, the building stock within it plays a large role in there. The data that we're looking there is from the UK emissions, and over a third, around 37% of the carbon emissions are associated with the building stock. And so we can see that we have this this great challenge to work through, where we have this rapid growth in population. The way that we're living is changing as well. Along that, we'll have a huge demand on more building stock, but at the same time, we're trying to become more environmentally friendly, more sustainable about how we live. So a great challenge ahead of us. In addition to this, the construction industry that we work in is also changing. It's becoming ever increasingly more digital, and the benefits of BIM, building information modeling, are manifesting itself in a manner of different ways in which we can see in everything that we're doing. So you might, for example, be using 3D CAD models, or 4D or 5D. You have augmented reality being used on site. You have sophisticated whiteboards connected to your BIM model in real time for quick and easy project amendments during project design meetings, for example. 3D printing has really taken off, particularly in recent years, and the sophistication of the technology to produce complex components is fast evolving. And here you can see in the top right hand side brackets used in construction that have been made from 3D printing. And of course, the Internet of Things has had a huge role to play. So now, with digitization of construction, there's a lot more data around. A lot of that has to be around the Internet of Things. And so when it comes to buildings, particularly new buildings, we're very good now at submetering and pulling data out of buildings. And actually, the real challenge now is, what do we do with that data? How do we data mine and get something useful out of all of what we're bringing in? So, so we have a changing world around us. The construction industry is adapting to that change, but what's happening in the countries that we're from? So I'm just going to concentrate a little bit here in the UK and the EU. Firstly, here in the UK government's recognised the need to capture information about assets to meet two competing goals: reducing carbon and saving money. A key driver for the UK was the realities of the recession. This forced a fresh look at the then approach to construction and public works, and to look for savings. According to the BIM UK Task Group, BIM on average saves around 20% on construction costs, and then the cost benefits upstream are obviously much, much more. BIM was recognised to be a useful part of the strategy because it's a vehicle to create and capture information during design for use during construction, commissioning and operation. So we start off the process defining information requirements. We track the development of that information throughout design and construction, and eventually hand over useful, relevant information with the building at completion. The building owner or manager can then use that information to effectively manage their facility. For the UK, the Digital Built Britain strategy, which we can see up here on the screen on the left-hand side, aligns with the construction 2025 Smart City and Digital Economy delivery plans. It's well recognised that many EU countries have also heavily adopted BIM. Countries like Finland, for example, was an early adopter and are very mature in the way they approach projects. But also that's reflected throughout Europe in Ireland, Germany, France, Denmark, Norway and Sweden. This is clearly not just a UK phenomenon, but a global move to digitising the construction industry. The European Commission recently awarded the EU BIM Task Group, which we can see up here on the slide in front of us, 2 years funding for 2 years, in 2016 and 2017, to deliver a common European network aimed at aligning the use of building information modelling in public works across all member states. This is a huge task, considering collectively one of the largest construction industries, valued at around 1/6 of the total global construction industry. And across the EU, the construction industry employs around 15 million people, over 3.1 million companies. So it's being tasked with standardising the approach to building information modelling across all member states is really a huge task. However, there is help with the standardisation, and it comes in the form of PAS 1192. PAS 1192, which is soon to be the ISO standard, which all countries will follow, is expected to be the outcome from the EU BIM Task Group, to be based on PAS 1192 becoming ISO is a key move, as all countries will then be working towards the same outcome. Here in the UK, where we adopted PAS 1192 at a very early stage, we see level 2 BIM as very much a stepping stone and not a destination. It's really about getting the fundamentals in place to enable us to make better use of the building information in the future. This overall presents a massive opportunity for the UK and other countries who have adopted PAS 1192 on the global construction stage. Okay, so now that we've looked at digitisation in construction as an overview globally, let's have a look at the role that IES and the virtual environment play in that. IES invests over a quarter of our turnover every year in research and development. Most of you will know us for our new design and retrofits, i.e. the suite of design tools that some of you will already be using, but that is only part of what we're about. Our aim is to move people around the virtuous circle, as the drivers mentioned, come into play more and more. So from your building model, we can start to link and real data from the building and operation to compare predicted with actual performance, all aspects. Scale that technology up from individual buildings to district level or city level, and master planning is the link between large scale and new design. Our goal is to optimize design and operational performance for any building, district, city, anywhere in the world. What's also interesting is the Digital Built Britain document that we looked at earlier actually covers all 4 of these key points in Smart Cities and Construction 2025. The virtual environment, as we know it, offers a single platform for performance, analysis, compliance through design, commissioning and operation. Maintaining the continuity of information by creating, capturing, analysing and exchanging at each stage of the asset lifecycle. All of this, the idea of having this single platform at the very start of your project without any building form, and then working you through all this early stage designs into detailed stage designs, into construction, commissioning, operation, and then using that same platform to effectively optimize the running of your building. And that's why the virtual environment is also referred to as being your BIM analysis and performance software suite. So let's have a look at that analysis capability in a little bit more detail, against, but this time against the recognised stages of PAS 1192 that we looked at a little bit earlier. It starts off there at stage 1, early stage design, before a model is available. We can analyse climate and look at the availability of natural resources. Then we can move on and carry out optioneering to optimise the layout of the building within the local environment, subject to its usage. We can evaluate compliance with building codes, standards and regulations such as LEED, BREEAM, WELL, Green Star, ESTADAMA, GSAS and many others at different stages, pre-assessment, intermediate and as-built. We can then carry out system design, costing at capital and life cycle. At the commissioning and handover stage, use the data to ensure the starting point of the building is correct. Once handed over, throughout the operational life, providing an ongoing feedback loop to any aspect of performance. So you're able to use the virtual environment at the very end and use that data to continually optimize the operational performance of your building. One way of thinking about BIM analysis and performance is, with respect to buildings, could be akin to wearing wearable technologies for buildings. So we're pulling data on sleep quality, heart rate, number of steps, and we're able to ask the question, how can I improve my performance? This is what the virtual environment provides for buildings, from design through to ongoing operation. Another example could be from an NHS trust. A question might be, how can we improve patient recovery times? Well, you could use data linking internal environmental quality to patient recovery time to design better buildings. Maybe using operational data can lend itself to predictive maintenance strategies rather than preventative. When will this heating coil fail? Or when will this filter need replaced based on how this unit has been performing, and using data from similar models. Okay, so we've looked at an overview of digitization of construction, and we've looked at how IES and the virtual environment fits into that. We do know that BIM integration with the virtual environment matters to you, hence why we're all here this morning on this webinar. But this year we thought it would be useful to have your thoughts, so that let's have a look at the results of the poll that you all took at registration. We appreciate your time to answer our polls, the 6 questions within our polls. So let's have a look at what the results of that were. So question 1. What software does your company currently use to create building models? Across the UK, EU and Middle East, we know that Autodesk Revit is the main drawing tool, and this appears to be supported in this poll. The vast majority of you answered that you use either your Revit model in the main, or you create within the virtual environment itself. Interestingly, there was other packages as well that were being used, such as PlanCal and eQuest. Question 2. What building simulation software do you currently use? Well, maybe not surprising for an IES webinar, but the majority of you answered that you use the virtual environment. Any of you that aren't using the virtual environment, obviously feel free to contact us and we can help you with that. But interestingly, other than the other softwares noted in front of your screens just now, there were some other ones as well. So EcoDesigner, Revit, Zafira, Transys, BSim, Viva Elements, Energy Plus, and eQuest. So there's a whole range of software tools out there. Question 3, has your company adopted a BIM process, or is it intending to implement a BIM strategy in the near future? Overwhelmingly, the majority of you have either adopted or intend to adopt a BIM strategy. This supports that many of those using the virtual environment are also operating within a BIM environment. Question 4. Do you or does someone within your company have expertise for coding such as Python scripting to mold your own workflow with compatible tools? Now, interestingly, more and more of you are use Python or know someone within the company that can use Python. This result, I'm sure, would have looked quite different 24 or even 12 months ago. So it's an interesting move within the industry. Question 5, what would be the approach you typically take to build your model in the virtual environment when you receive a BIM project? The majority of you answered that you would export 2D plans to rebuild the model in the virtual environment's model application, or you would simplify the BIM project to import straight into the virtual environment. And finally, question 6, how do you find the current BIM integration process on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being you're happy and everything works, 1 it infuriates you and nothing works. So clearly more than half are find this challenging and are struggling with this, but let's keep that in mind for the rest of this webinar. So in conclusion, the majority of you are using Revit for your drawing, you're using the virtual environment for your simulation, you're working within a BIM environment using those platforms. A growing number of you are able to use Python scripting to adapt software to your own workflows. But most of you are using simplified models and over half are finding bringing your Revit model into the virtual environment challenging. That's quite interesting. So that's why we're delighted to announce our new Interoperability Navigator. This is a whole new way to ensure you have the functionality in place to carry out your analysis. It's a great tool, and no matter if you're new to the virtual environment or if you're an experienced user, the new Interoperability Navigator will form your standard process to importing your model data from your drawing package into the virtual environment. My colleague Douglas Bell will demonstrate this in detail in the following session. And finally, it's worth noting that here at IES, we're committed to better buildings and smarter cities by reducing energy and costs through integrated building performance analysis. We do this through unrivaled investment in research and development to develop technology for you, our clients, that's cutting edge. The latest update to the virtual environment, VE 2017, is due for release later this month, of which there are many new features. The new Interoperability Navigator is just one of those.